right. There's credits. Alright. Literally, if you choose the restoration, it begins the game over again with you waking up at the end of the calamity. I kind of had a feeling, that, if you don't, like... I mean, obviously, I didn't really understand the choices, so Feels had to help me out with that, but... I feel like this music is, like, mega loud. I kind of feel that maybe I got lost in the details of the story there as I was playing. That's one of the issues with playing a game where the story is unfolding as you are engaged in combat, is there's a lot of focus put on not dying and less of a focus on hearing what the narrator is talking about and trying to comprehend how it correlates with everything. So I guess that was both a fault of mine and a fault of the game, because I guess I can't multitask while I'm fighting like that. But overall, I think I had an okay time with this game. When I first played it in like 2013-ish or so, as mentioned, like I thought it was an okay game. Didn't really have any criticisms or praise that would tilt the spectrum in any one way. And I kind of feel the same way this time. I like that there's a lot of weapons. There's a lot of variety and customization that you can do. I like that... Sorry, I'm playing with my phone and I shouldn't be doing that. I like that that you don't have to basically restrict yourself to any one play style. If you want to go out there with the carbine and the bow, I mean, you can do that. It's going to be a little rough, but you can do that. I guess there's a snag for me when it comes to the story itself, much for the reasons that I've already mentioned, but also just because I don't know if the story was necessarily told in a way that made me understand things in the way that I'm normally familiar with. So that kind of sucks for me. Let me see. In regards to building the Bastion up again, I did like how you can kind of choose your path the way you want to go. I mean, eventually you'll get everything, but you can choose what you get first. And adding choices like that is always interesting, especially because if you want to go through the game again, you can go for more optimized paths and things like that. So I think that's pretty cool. Your biggest issue with the game is the fun of it is unlocking and upgrading your kit, but the game's over by the time that happens. Yeah, you know what? That is actually a really good point as well. And on top of that, the very end of the game, they're still giving you stuff. And even worse than that for me is that, at the very end of the game, you finally kind of have your arsenal at your hands. And then they just give you a battering ram. And it's like, well, I spent the entire game finding out what playstyle I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and seeing, and then we finally get to the point where, like, all right, I've upgraded everything. I feel, real good. I'm doing good damage against stuff. My utility's good. And then they just kind of give you a battering ram, and they're like, yeah, forget all that stuff that you just upgraded. You didn't really need all that. You got a battering ram now. And not to mention, the battering ram was just slow. It was very, very slow. There are 3 more of those combat arenas that are the real end game content. Oh, okay. Interesting. Let me see. What else can I say? I don't know. I don't know if I really have any any other specific comments. You know, I mean, it's the one stream game for me, so you know, I didn't get to process everything in the way that I normally do. But I would just say overall, I think it's a decent game. Um, I don't think it does anything bad. I don't think it does anything great in terms of mechanics or play styles or anything like that. But I do like the kind of unique approach that it took with the game of, you know, like, we're gonna have this narrator kind of explain how the story is told, I suppose. It's not something that I was very familiar with when it comes to gaming, so I think that's pretty cool. Oh yeah, the music. The music. All right, the music is probably the best thing about this game. The music was pretty freaking amazing. You know what? As a matter of fact, let me just bring up my little review thingy, or not review, my thoughts template. That way I can not forget anything. But the music is pretty good. There was a really nice variety to the music as well, because there were some where it's like, okay, you know, you got a little bit of hip hop vibes to this, and then, you know, you got a little bit more slower tempo, kind of like this track right here. A lot of Western themes to it. I think the music was pretty nice. As far as dungeons go, I didn't really feel like the dungeons were all that interesting. And as a matter of fact, I might even go as far as to say that the enemy design wasn't all too interesting as well. I think towards the end, enemies started getting a little interesting, like, you know, the Ura ninjas and things like that. Those guys were pretty crazy. Some of the bosses were kind of crazy, I suppose. Maybe I just wasn't a fan of the mechanics used in for those particular enemies. I don't know. Cardinal Sins, silent protagonist. This might be one of the only games that I could probably say that. Well, let me start over. I think this game takes an interesting approach with the silent protagonist, and while I don't like silent protagonists at all, I definitely do think that the unique approach this game takes is an example of how you can create a silent protagonist that doesn't feel like the most worthless waste of space ever. I mean, granted, you know, we still fall into all the trappings of the silent protagonist. He doesn't talk, he doesn't show any emotion or anything like that. He's basically just a cardboard character, basically. You know, I mean, like, there's nothing to him whatsoever. But the way this game is narrated does provide a more unique experience than when it comes to traditional silent protagonists. So I think that's pretty cool. Voice acting was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The graphics, like the graphics. Replay value. I like to I basically judge replay value on, am I gonna get am I gonna get additional story by playing the game? So I think a really good example of a game that has replay value is Fire Emblem Awakening, where you can play through the Blue Lions like I did, and you see one particular angle of the story, and then you can play the Black Eagles to see a whole other angle of the story, or you could play the Yellow Deer, or whatever, I don't know, the deer, and you can get a whole other angle of the story, and they all have like different story elements that's brand new to those paths. Whether or not they all end at the same spot or not, who knows? But I think Fire Emblem Awakening is kind of like a really nice template for how I approach replay value. And sure, you could play the New Game Plus. There is definitely value in doing that, trying different builds and things like that. It's just I always like to base it on, am I going to get new story? Like, for me, playing a game a second time, I need to get something out of it that's not mechanics, basically. I need the story to progress from there. And, games don't do that very often, but that's just what I want out of a second playthrough. And I guess if the developer is watching, I think he made a solid game. Truthfully, I don't know if I would play a Bastion 2 unless I got to see how the game has evolved. Because I think the game is fine, but it doesn't do anything to necessarily grab me and my particular likes for games, as opposed to other things. I'm a RPG player. I like turn-based combat and all other stuff. So the things I like about action games are very, very different in a lot of ways. So there's that. However, I am very curious to all the other games that have been developed, like Transistor and Hades, both games of which I own, so I will definitely get around to playing those eventually. But yeah, again, overall thoughts. I think the game is definitely fine. I think there's a unique aspect to it that I really, really like, and I would definitely like to see some games maybe evolve this kind of storytelling process. I think a silent protagonist is an interesting way to go about it, and I don't think that approach failed here, but I also think that you could do a voiced character, not necessarily voice acting, but give them dialogue and all this other stuff, and actually do some interesting things with that. So there's that. Everyone always forgets the Supergiant game about the sports ball, even you, but you've heard good things. Is that Pyre? Because I'm avoiding that one on purpose. But that's gonna wrap it up for, I guess, today. This has been a we'll just say about 6 hours. I'm curious how. Let me see. So I'm at 11 hours right now, according to Steam, and they don't do like the in-betweens or anything like that. So yeah, I did play this game for 6 hours. I must have been stuck on like the challenges or something like that. How did I put 6 hours into this game? You know what? I bet you I was going for the Steam trading cards. That must be how. I probably only put like 2 hours in this game. This was a blind playthrough. I don't know what I was doing. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific, to play something. Bet you went hammer build. Who knows what I went. But anyways, see you tomorrow. Oh wait, no, did I say 8:30 a.m. Pacific? All right, not 6 o'clock p.m. That's the old one. But anyways, peace.